So if anything can be learned from the last couple of years, is that the Conservative Party have completely run out of ideas. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. All their economic policies have failed. All their social policies have failed. They're completely lost at sea. They have a gigantic majority and they have no idea what to do with it. And so what they've had to do is they've had to retreat to a bunch of culture war stuff, a bunch of social issue stuff, and playing towards nostalgia boomer bait. That's why we had Boris Johnson wanting to bring back imperial units, for example. Like really kind of bottom of the barrel, red meat style policy, which has no real justification for being a headline policy position. Only if you're desperate, you're completely running out of ideas, and you need to try and win people over in the most tedious way possible. And this is continuing now, in that Penny Mordaunt, currently the secretary of, the leader of the House of Commons, I believe she is, currently like a nonsense position made up so someone can get a ministerial car, pretty much. She's come out and said that we need to bring back national service. I told you the Tories were going to run on bringing back national service. It's the perfect policy for them because it means that they get to do boomer bait, this nostalgia boomer bait for the old days of national service. The boomers that never actually lived through national service but feel like it would be a good thing to sort them young'uns out because there's a problem with the youths. This ever increasing demographic that the Conservative Party just cannot get on board because they've massively failed them up to this point, and because they can't win them over on economics because their economic policies and ideologies are completely out of step, not just with what young people believe in this country, but with the material interest of young people in general. They have nothing. So they just have to try and get as many reactionary, curtain-twitching boomer types out to go Pokemon Go to the polls as possible. That's all they can do. And so they've come out with absolute nonsense like this shit, which I find very funny. But as far as policy is concerned, it's absolutely dire. It's really, really, really bad. And it is, again, indicative of a party that hasn't got a clue what the hell that it's doing. So this is the article that she's put up on her website about the wish for taking responsibility, because that's the problem with young people now. There's no responsibility. It's not that they've had all of their material interests completely ignored by successive governments for 40 years. None of that, right? We can't be having any discussion on policy. It's just the bad attitude of young people, which can be fixed by giving them national service. So we are a nation of people who step up and take responsibility. Onward, which is a centre-right UK think tank seconded by Daniel Finkelstein, shows how we can help empower the next generation, right? Give them the tools to be able to pick themselves up by their rhetorical bootstrap. And then there's a picture of her, and this time not dressed like an advert for Poundland. No one is more effective at helping others than a willing volunteer. Nothing is more rewarding than serving your community and nation. Many young people are struggling with their mental health to find purpose and feel a sense of belonging. Stepping forward to help others could be part of the answer. Service can help build the resilience, skills, and pride in their community and a country may need. Now, I actually don't necessarily disagree with a lot of what's being said here. I do think that having a social contract, people becoming part of their community, right? I am literally a communist. A community is something that I genuinely have a pretty close belief in. Community is really important, right? And I do think that having some kind of mutual relationship within a community is something that the bedrock of a good society is built on. Unfortunately, the people who were the ones who tore up those social contracts, who don't take responsibility, and who are massively entitled and coddled by politics, who really do need to give something back, are the kind of voters who are being pandered to of the older generations, and none of the people who are getting targeted with this policy, right? Because younger people are already, believing in things like mutual aid, things like communities. That's something that the younger people in this country do generally have a pretty strong belief in already, and they don't need the state, the nanny state, to come and tell them that they need to start doing community service or whatever it is. In fact, I think that, one of the main things that's stopping young people from having this sense of individual fulfillment and sense of community is the fact that our jobs have been casualized. They've been outsourced to loads of different massive global multinationals. Very few people work for local companies serving local people as part of their community anymore. This faithless way that the world of work has been changed out of localism and into globalism. That is what is failing people in terms of community. And people already work far too long. People already already having to be told that they need to have a regular full-time job and a side hustle, otherwise it's their fault if they're feeling massively destitute comparatively, given the rising cost of living and how expensive the necessities of life are, given what was sold off due to neoliberalism, at the benefit of the people who want this policy to be inflicted on young people, right? National service is an old idea, but today the centre-right think tank Onward has unveiled its proposal for a modern version. I can understand its motives for doing so. They hope to harness young people's goodwill and community spirit, tap into the energy and imagination of an exciting new generation, and promote good mental health and resilience. I applaud these objectives. Now, the thing is that a lot of what's coming out here is this idea that despite all of this goodwill that these people have and this community spirit, it's not being channeled well, or it's not being brought out. And I'm like, and that this is like a source of the mental health problems. No, the source of the mental health problems is the dumb economic system that you inflicted on this country, Tories, right? As I was mentioning before, neoliberalism is what's destroyed community in this country. That was the thing that you did to us. And are now saying, well, we're not going to change any of that. It's still going to be really expensive to own a house, right? It's still going to be really expensive to afford basic necessities. We're still going to be, pumping literal excrement into the rivers. There's still going to be huge amounts of kind of reactionary social movements that are massively out of step with the kind of general philosophical beliefs of the younger generations. We're not going to fix any of that. All these things that are really bad for your mental health. That's what is really bad, is that this complete lack of a future that young people are seeing due to economic circumstances, environmental circumstances, no pensions, no nothing, no benefits at work until you die, retire at 70. That's why young people are miserable, and they need a sense of purpose in everything that they do. And you can't just tack on some community service as part of national service when the 40 hours a week at minimum that they're doing in the rest of their normal lives is already soul crushing, given that there's very little future at hope when the fossil fuel companies are destroying the planet for profit. That's where the mental health problems are coming from. And saying, oh, here's some voluntary community service, that's not going to cut it. That should be the things that we are already doing. That should be part of your everyday general life as part of your vocation. What happened to 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for work, and 8 hours for what we will? What happened to that? It's gone. It's dead. It's no longer part of the public consciousness. And you're trying to colonize what 8 hours for what we will they have left to try and tell them that, oh, suddenly, well, I know that everything else is miserable, but maybe if you take some of your free time and use it for a community project that we've imposed upon you, rather than something that you've sought out yourself, that will somehow fix these problems. It's nonsense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And this idea that it's, that it's going to engender personal responsibility. I mean, young people already have lots of personal responsibility. It's the same stupid boomer tropes that the economic system is something that is completely irrelevant to the discussions of why younger people in this country are not being as successful. And they can only view this through the realm of bootstraps mentality. It's ridiculous and I hate it. Like, literally, the belief in taking personal responsibility for yourself and for others is what took me into politics. I believe it defines conservatism. Socialism dilutes personal responsibility. Conservatism concentrates it. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like if you gave someone control over their own working life by, I don't know, giving them a share of the means of production and distribution in exchange, they might be more inclined to take ownership of what they're doing rather than being completely detached and alienated from the gigantic billion-dollar faceless multinational corporation that they work for pittance for with no pension and no benefits. Whereas, I would take far more personal responsibility personally if I actually saw returns from the work that I did, rather than having no incentive to try whatsoever. This idea that socialism takes away personal responsibility, complete nonsense. Again, because these people only think that socialism is when the government does stuff and when people get free handouts. Nonsense. It's complete nonsense. And again, of course, she probably knows this. She's not an idiot, but she knows that her audience don't know that. Now, she did mention already in this article that this is the brainchild of the think tank UK Onward, which is a centre-right think tank, and the person who is responsible for this absolute nonsense is friend of the show, Sebastian Payne, a part-time shell for the arms and fossil fuel industry, and part-time Will from the In-Betweeners impersonator. Here is the article that he did, which says broadly the same kind of thing, that younger people are unhappy, unskilled, and unmoored, and maybe, right, fix the problems with the social contract that your economic system ruined, skill them up by giving them affordable education, that thing that you took away from them by tripling tuition fees. And if you moored them in community, but not of destroying community by continually supporting an objectivist economic system where greed is seen to be good, personal and individual needs are put above the community's needs, And you're looking here going, where's all the social fabric gone? Where's the social contract gone? It went with the Randian nonsense that people like you have supported for the last 40 years, both red team and blue team. The reason why we say social in socialism is because we believe in society coming together, right? Collective ownership of the means of production, the collective consciousness, people coming together, uniting people, union movements. This is all what becoming more to a society and the social contract is supposed to entail. And you're telling me that actually, if we just get people to opt into some community project on the side of their miserable rest of their lives, it's somehow going to fix it, is this complete nonsense. These challenges go beyond their individual well-being. The youngest are 3 times more likely than retirees to distrust their neighbours, and a clear majority state they are less patriotic than older generations. Again, seems like the societal responsibility of neoliberalism, right? I hate to go all Marxist on you, Seb, but the base indeed informs the superstructure. You create the world that you want to see through economics. Thatcher believed this. One of the kind of main things of Thatcherism was this idea that the method was economics and the goal was to change the soul. And yeah, you've changed the souls of this country into people who are incredibly grasping, selfish individuals, because that's what neoliberalism as an economic system trains people to do. And that was the whole point. That was the goal. Well done. You've gotten what you wanted, Seb. Such alienation from society is already proving problematic. The UK's high level of labour and activity at the heart of the inflation crisis. No, it's cost push inflation, but I will humour you on this one. Given that 5 million people could be in work and are not. Unemployment is at historic lows in this country. It's the lowest it's been recently since the 70s. We have historically low unemployment, and the rest of the labour and activity is because of people having health problems, because your party, the people that you support and you desperately want to be an MP for, Seb, destroyed the NHS by selling it off piecemeal to the American private interests. And even the party that you're not a part of, the Red Tories under New Labour, they piecemeal sold off the NHS to the private sector through private finance initiatives, further destroying the NHS and kicking loads of people out of the workforce. With 1 in 5 18 to 24-year-olds inactive, Whitehall is desperate to find ways to ease as many possible back into the workforce. I mean, plenty of students, but whatever. Whereas the recent childcare reforms will aid parents, because the state is now having to pick up the tab, now because people can't afford to raise children anymore, because the cost of living is too expensive, because of our marketisation of essentials, and because wages have been pushed down by 40 years of supply-side labour market reform, empowering corporations and disempowering workers. Suddenly, all of that money the state could have been spending on the front end to make life affordable on the front end is now having to spend money subsidising the fact that corporations are stealing so much surplus value from their employees. They're saying to have to come in to pay for childcare so that people can have the basic of being able to actually have a family, because of the cost of living and the standard of living is so low. A British programme should be opt-out as opposed to asking young people to step forward, with the aim of 600,000 16-year-olds taking part every year. Yeah, because David Cameron spent 1.3 billion on trying to get the National Civic Scheme working and no one bloody turned up, right? And suddenly they think they're just going to be able to repeat the same mistake again and suddenly everything will be different now. I find that pretty difficult to believe. It lost momentum and fell short of its targets and funding soon after the former Prime Minister exited Downing Street. As with too many policy initiatives, it was overly reliant on the patronage of one person. And again, they have created this problem through their failure to use the state on the front end to properly create an equitable and well-functioning society. They've sold all that off for profit, right? All their mates in the private sector, all their corporate friends. They've sold all of that stability off to those people for profit. And now the state's having to come in and subsidise all of those social failures, all of those social ills that neoliberalism has granted us. I'm just spitballing here, right? Maybe have a more socialist and cooperative workforce, bring our economy back to locally again, have local shops, local butchers, local markets, right? Rather than everyone being employed by these gigantic faceless mega corporations that everyone despises working for and push our wages down miserably. How about we bring back localism, we bring back mutualism, bring back a cooperative workplace, bring back credit unions, bring back building societies, rebuild our community on the base level through economics rather than having sold this all away for corporate greed. But no, of course we can't do that now. That ship has sailed, so the state is having to spaff away huge amounts of money to fix the problems that these people caused in the first place.
If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does help out the channel and the algorithm. And if you click the bell notification icon, it will let you know when I go live and when I upload videos. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my handle is @NoJusticeMTG, and that is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. If you want to support my channel in a more financial manner, you can do so by becoming a member for just 99p, by super chatting, or by supporting me on Patreon, with the link is in the description of this video, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next segment.